You're ready.
All right. Welcome back to the 406 Budcast, where we have our usual list of hosts. We've got Hannah Rome over here across from me. We've got Daniel Rome across the couch. Next to me, of course, we've got Tanaki with her tenacious questions. And we've got the lovely Michelle behind the desk keeping us in order. And we'll have our special guest, Alan, come back with us right after this quick introduction. So like, subscribe, share, and follow.
All right.
Yeah. Roll it up, line it up, listen up now. It's the 406 Budcast, gonna show you how. Cannabis culture, grow a bit strong. Hear the latest trends, you can't go wrong. Tune in today, yeah, knowledge on blast. #1 podcast, it's the 406 Budcast. From strength to gains, they break it all down. Passion and hustle, wear the green crown. Industry insights right in your ears. Growing green dreams, no need for fears. Tune in today, yeah, knowledge on blast. #1 podcast, it's the 406 Budcast. Yeah. Cannabis culture, grow big strong. Hear the latest trends, you can't go wrong. Tune in today, yeah, knowledge on blast. #1 podcast, it's the 406 Budcast. From strengths to gains, we break it all down. Passion and hustle, wear the green crown. Industry insights right in your ears. Growing green dreams, no need for fears. Tune in today, yeah, knowledge on blast. #1 podcast, it's the 406 Budcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed our intro as usual. We've got a lovely show for you this evening with Tanaki's questions. We've got our strain of the week. We've got news with Nate this evening.
And
got
of course,
Alan.
We have our special guest, Alan from 420 Investor. Of course, you've done quite a few things, but why don't you go ahead? No one can do it better than yourself. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us real quickly?
Yeah, I think they always say in cannabis years you're supposed to multiply them by 7, so I'm into my 100th year. No, I kind of stumbled into the cannabis industry in 2013, and I had used cannabis before it was even called cannabis when I was living in New York City and when I was going to college in Chicago. But I was clueless about Washington and Colorado, what they did in 2012. And I read about it in early 2013, and I was in a good position where I could quickly navigate my whole life around cannabis stocks. And so I've been doing that since then, and I run 420 Investor for people who want to invest in cannabis stocks and to learn what the hell they're doing. And I run New Cannabis Ventures, which is free to the public, and it's just financial news for the cannabis industry.
Michelle.
There, no, sorry. Go ahead. Apologize.
Sorry, we were having a little bit of technical difficulties there, Alan. But we are all caught up. Can you hear us okay right now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
For the first time in my life, I thought I didn't talk enough, but that's okay.
No, it's good. It's good. Thank you so much. So we just want to quickly apologize for that. We had just a little bit of audio issue there, but we have it 100% sorted out now. We can hear you. You can hear us. So we're good to go. Real quickly, thank you again for introducing yourself. We really appreciate that. Again, I do apologize. We in studio missed a little bit of the opening portion of you introducing yourself. So if you don't mind, we'd love to hear it again.
Sure.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry.
This in 2013. I didn't really get into the how But in 2012 were the elections in Colorado and Washington, and I had no idea. I read about it in early 2013 at Seeking Alpha, and I was like, whoa. And I was at a point in my life where I could swing and take care of covering cannabis stocks. And back then, they were just silly penny stocks. They were all scams. And so I launched this service, and the industry evolved, and it's not just scams anymore.
Right. Of course. I mean, go ahead, Nate. Sorry,
You're good.
I was just going to say, of course, I was reading your newsletter that you provided for us, and there's quite a few companies out there, and some that are even NASDAQ 500 listed or attempting to be. So there, as you said, there is a large segment of the investing industry that is now focused on cannabis. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's been kind of a nightmare for those who care about the plant, and I do. We haven't made any progress federally. We've had a lot of states approve it, but all the states are different, and some of them don't do it very well, like Oklahoma, for example. And we can talk about different states, but every state is different. And thank God we don't have Jeff Sessions anymore. But that was not good. But even though we don't have Jeff Sessions, we don't really have anything yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think what you're touching on a little bit there is some of these bills that we're trying to work through the Congress recently and pretty much stalled out, and some of the descheduling talks that had happened. And now it seems like that's fizzled out a little bit at the FDA level as well, just with some of the court involvements. So, how is that? What kind of difficulty does that pose for your business as far as trying to give financial advice, being able to advertise or communicate to customers effectively?
So the big thing going on right now, and people get kind of confused about what the big issues are. It would be great, I think, if the federal government would legalize cannabis, but that's not happening. Not now. Maybe, but that doesn't appear to be happening. But there is something really big going on. And does it really matter if cannabis is Schedule 1 or Schedule 3? Not really, except for one thing. And this has been going on for a year and a half now, that this has become a big topic. If cannabis is rescheduled from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, it will wipe out this tax that Ronald Reagan, just say no, put into effect in 1980, 280E taxation. And you guys must know what that is.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you grow cannabis and pay taxes. And I'm sure your listeners are familiar with this, but basically, if you grow or retail cannabis, you pay not income tax, but you pay a tax on your gross profits.
Yes.
Yeah, so you guys know, I don't know if your whole audience knows, but what can happen is companies can be losing money, but still owe a lot of taxes. And that's just wrong.
Yeah, we deal with pretty high taxation rates here in Montana as well. One of the highest in the nation, 20% excise tax, and then local governments or counties could add an additional 3% on top of that. So up to 23% recreational, and it's been something that we've had to deal with. Fortunately, the state lets us write some of it off. But like you said, when it comes to the federal government, it's just cost prohibitive at some points when it comes to the taxation on that.
So the big problem right now for investors, and people would always ask me back in 2013, 2014, when's it going to be legal, Alan? And I would say, well, I don't think it's going to be legal in the next 5 years, but it doesn't need to be legal. And even back then, I was thinking this 280E tax would ultimately go away, but it's still here. And the problem is that these American cannabis growers and retailers have debt, and the capital markets have seized on them, and they're going to go bankrupt. A lot of companies are going bankrupt, but we're going to see some big companies go bankrupt.
So how do you think the European markets are going to play into that if, we do get to some deschedule, like level 3, that would open up the doors for some of those players to come in? Do you think that's going to cause a downward pressure on our markets?
So I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Are you suggesting that if we reschedule cannabis, that there's going to be foreign companies that try to come in?
I think that's already being established right now. There's some people in Germany and some other areas that are looking at establishing multi-country companies.
So I think that you can be a German company in multi-countries, but you can't do the US. Not if you're listed on the NASDAQ, for example. NASDAQ will not let any company that is selling or growing or selling cannabis have a NASDAQ listing. And so if you want to be an over-the-counter company, sure. But nobody wants to be an over-the-counter company.
Sure. So do you think ETFs are going to come into play a little more when it comes to cannabis companies as an investment model?
Yeah, I've been following MSOS. It's the biggest. I have it up on my screen right now. I was doing something. It's a lot smaller than it was, but it's the biggest cannabis ETF. And I think that a lot of people make a huge mistake with this. Number one, they think that it's a way to invest in the cannabis market, but the cannabis market is a lot bigger than what they're doing. You mentioned Europe, for example, but you don't even have to go that far. There are big companies in Canada where it's federally legal. How many of those does MSOS own? 0. So that's one big problem. And I don't want to call it the best ETF, but it is. It's like the only ETF. There are a few others. One of them just announced that they're closing. The ticker symbol is MJUS. Amplify bought it less than a year ago. So the other problem with MSOS is that they have 70% in their top 3 holdings. I've been an investment professional for many years. Nobody should invest like that ever. And if you want to say, well, that's just the way the market is, no. They have GTI, which is in Green Thumb Industries, which is in Chicago, is 35% of that ETF. And they're not 35% of the market, not even close.
Right.
So it's very poorly diversified. And then the third problem with that ETF is that they're pretty brainless. They call themselves actively managed. Well, I know what actively managed means, and they don't do anything. All they do is when the money flows in, they invest. Is that active management? No. So I don't think the ETFs are good now, and I don't envision that they're going to get better. Does that answer your question?
It sure does. Yeah. And that was a really thorough explanation, and I appreciate that. I know we have some people out in the chat out there, Mr. Burns, Calvin, several others. Need to say hello to them real quick.
Yeah,
We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to some really expert advice here from a long-term financial advisor, cannabis financial advisor, Alan. He's coming at us from 420 Investors, I believe.
Yep.
So yeah.
Do you mind if I do a little disclaimer real quick?
Come on with it.
Well, for first off, of course, as the Cannabis Show, this is all for education purposes and for fun and all of that. In addition to that, we on the team are not financial advisors, and as a show, we are not. So, blah, 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 all of that. However, I actually believe that Alan is. So if you want to go ahead and shoot him an email, I'm sure he could answer your questions. So,
And even though we're going to be discussing financial terms and all kinds of other things, stick to the professionals when it comes to financial advice. Ours is opinion only.
Yep.
Mine's
Absolutely.
opinion only too. No.
All right. Hey, so there we go. We're going into this tonight with opinions. With that in mind, Calvin, one of our viewers, actually has a question specific for you, Alan. He says, could he explain what Oklahoma did wrong in his opinion? I'm curious what you have to say about that.
So I have nothing against Oklahoma as a state, although I'm in Texas. I'm born in Texas. I live in Texas.
Red River Rally going on right there. I hear it already.
But I was very down on this program, and every state's different, and we can go over more states. Some do it right, some do it very wrong, and I think Oklahoma messed up. They made it basically, you could get a medical card if you had a pulse, basically. You didn't have to have anything except the doctor say you needed this prescription or authorization. And that was part of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's basically making it legal. Anybody that's got a pulse can get cannabis. Where they made the mistake, though, is they gave out too many licenses. And all of a sudden, they had tons of production because they basically made it really easy for anybody that wanted to grow it. And they had basically 10% of their population very early on become medical cannabis patients. And the old rule of thumb was 2% is the most, but that's not even true because 4% of Florida's medical cannabis patients are already, 4% of the population is already medical cannabis patients.
Sure.
So the 10% was way off the top. And there was some other stuff. They had all these people, they couldn't sell it. There aren't that many people in Oklahoma. They had too much production. So what they do, unfortunately, they shipped it out of state. And so it's been a bust. And it was improperly regulated. And that was the problem with Oklahoma.
Well, I think, that's one of the things that they're wrestling with right now in the Montana legislature is cutting off the expansion of licenses. They've had a moratorium in place on people from out of state owning licenses and sort of limited the expansion to some degree. There's, I know a lot of people who advocate for that system. There are other people who advocate for more of a free market, allow it to expand and contract as it will, because obviously some of those businesses that were over leveraged are going to start going under. They're going to start going out. And those people who were prudent within their business planning are going to rise to the top and start to become the producers of those states. And that's just sort of the natural ebb and flow of a market. And if you get too much regulation, you get sort of what you have in Washington or California.
Yeah,
How do
those
we-
are different states, but I was going to say, and I'm glad you mentioned California, that years ago, California screwed up. They were the first one to be medical in 1996, was it? And they had, I went to California, I got a medical card easily and purchased in California when it was medical. And I'm not complaining, that was okay. The problem was that it was legal, but not regulated. And then the voters passed adult use and they started to regulate medical and adult use at the same time. It was a disaster. And California went from the cream of the crop. They used to call it one of the top 7 nations in the world for cannabis. It's just a state, but they called it a nation.
Yeah,
because it was, yeah.
And then it crumbled, and you had wars between the people up north in Monterey, not Monterey, sorry, further north, I'm forgetting. And then LA had all these illegal dispensaries open. They weren't ever regulated.
Yeah.
And nobody knew what was a good place to buy or not. I have my half sister lives there, and I said, do you know if the store you're buying at is legal? And she's a smart person. She scratched her head. She said, I have no idea. And it was like, okay, that's not a good way to run a business if somebody can open up. And I lived in New York for 6 years.
Yeah.
And no, 8 years. And New York, when it was going to be legal, I thought it would be the next California. That was in 2020, they were talking about it. Well, unfortunately, it turned into the next California in a bad way. But now,
Right.
And I don't know if Montana, you guys are keeping up with what's going on there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
It's-
We covered the amount of illegal operations that are continuing to go on there, and it seems to be like whack-a-mole at this point for New York. That every time
it's
they-
evolved. It's gotten better. What you just said was the case, but they have opened up more stores and they've started to clamp down. They've even gotten in trouble with the law there for the way they've been clamping down. But
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
the legal sales in California, in New York, are over $1 billion now, which sounds like a lot, but this is New York. They should be 4 billion, 5 billion, but it's
Right.
on the way.
Yeah, I mean, and we covered that as well. With New York, it's interesting that they just hit 1 billion. Montana just hit 1 billion in sales as well. So little old Montana is keeping up with New York as far as sales.
In 1 year, Montana did $1 billion?
Not in 1 year, but I think over the last couple of years, we've hit $1 billion in sales.
So they
We're
were $1
definitely
billion a year, but that's not that big for New York.
No.
Well, yeah, even still, if you think about the relative population of our whole grand state compared to New York, I mean,
I think
Y'all
we
are
just
doing
hit,
well.
I think we just hit 1 million in population,
right.
not counting the cows.
Yeah. We're still way heavy on cows.
Way outnumbered.
Way outnumbered for sure. Hopefully, no cow uprisings.
No cow tipping up out here.
Absolutely.
So,
Are you talking about what kind of cannabis cows like?
they seem to like quite a bit of cannabis, and we've done some research and reporting on some of the research that's been done, and it seems to actually relax the cows a lot more when they feed them cannabis or any other livestock. And for some reason, the meat seems to be of a higher quality from cows that they have fed cannabis, just because they're a much more relaxed state. So,
When you say eat cannabis, they just hand on the plant, or is it?
I think what happens is after they've processed it. So obviously there's hemp production that's out there. And a lot of people just squeeze the hemp for the oils and stuff like that. All that roughage, they have something that they have to do with it. So they feed it to cattle and stuff. Typically, from my understanding, they make it into pellets, little pellets and things like that, and then feed it to livestock. But there's also just regular cannabis waste from the cannabis plants. After you get done trimming it and stuff like that, the leaves, anything else that doesn't get processed, apparently they feed those to livestock as well. And it really does have an effect. And I think some of the southern universities like Alabama and a couple others are doing some studies as far as feeding live cannabis plants to animals.
My parents actually have some goats, and they don't do any research, but my parents have some goats, and they also do some home grows. And this last summer, they had some problems with some of their plants. And instead of just trying to save them, they were just like, meh, and then gave them to the goats as a treat. And the goats absolutely freaking loved them.
Yeah.
So now they just give all the excess, like trimmings, and when they clean up plants or whatnot, just whoop, give all the leaves to the goats, and they go freaking crazy for it. They absolutely love it.
Nice snack.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me think we might be on to the next Wagyu beef here. Ultra relaxed cows. Super, super tender beef.
Super
anyway.
Nothing
you.
but fat.
Yes, nothing but fat. Exactly. They got the munchies and they're relaxed. That's perfect. I mean, I can't think of a better situation.
some canna butter topping.
Yeah. Just real quick, we've got a couple more people popping into the chat. Canadian Dad from YouTube. Hey, what's up? How's it going over there? Becca's World, of course, we're happy to see you as well. Thanks for stopping by. Man, you know, believe it or not, we're already cruising through here. How's do we have any other news topics to go over?
Oh, yes.
Sure,
video?
sure. Let's get
Let's
into
pop our
that.
news.
We will
All right,
pop
we'll do
into our
news video.
news intro.
Cannabis updates fresh and real. Tune in with Nate, it's the big deal. Cannabis news with Nate, let's go. Every story makes you go. Stay informed, don't be late. Cannabis news with Nate.
Guys, we're back with the Budcast news. It's Nate here. So we're going to bring you that latest cannabis news that's bringing the big sky together with the rest of the world. So it's fired up here real quick. Montana cannabis tax too high for growth? Question mark. So there's a huge question mark going on out there as to whether or not the Montana cannabis tax is too high. It's consumers and obviously the business owners is saying that 23% is a little bit too dang high. And I definitely am one that agrees with all of that. Right now, adult use cannabis carries 20% state excise tax with an optional 3% local tax, bringing that to 23% in some areas like Yellowstone County where we live. So consumers are out there having to pay 23% just for their cannabis. I mean, that's a pretty big hit to their pocketbook, especially right now.
25% is 25%.
Yeah, you know, and that actually affects the business's bottom line as well. I mean, obviously that 25% could have went to the business, you know, and just to give you a little bit of comparison here, Colorado, they have a 15% tax on wholesale cannabis, 15% tax on retail cannabis. So they're right around that 15% range if you're going out there and buying it. Michigan, right around 10% retail excise tax on cannabis. And then they have a 6% sales tax. So right at about 16%.
Mm-hmm.
And then California, 15% excise tax with varying local taxes. So they could get close to 20%, but not quite there. And the biggest one that leads the pack, though, is Washington at 37% whopping. But Montana's second in the nation when it comes to that. So, I mean, that's not a very good thing for us to really have on our list there.
Not a huge source of pride for me.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the thing about it is it's really hard for smaller businesses to develop and everything else like that right now with, you know, economic pressure. I would say that, you know, if Montana businesses and consumers could get a little tax relief, it would go a long way to stimulating Montana's economy, especially with how much we've put into the economy.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm all for supporting all of the great things that we've protected in our tax code for what cannabis tax is used for in Montana. But, you know, not if the goose dies.
Yeah, that's a dang fact.
Then it doesn't work anymore. So,
well, you know, I mean, I think that lowering the tax rate could help, you know, boost legal sales. Obviously, we know that it could quash a little bit of the black market activity that we see out there. You know, I mean, that happens in all the other markets, like we were just talking about New York with Alan. You know, the other thing, it would help small dispensaries out in the rural area thrive a little bit better with not having to have all of their profit be given to the government. And I think right now, you know, it would actually help create a little bit of jobs. I mean, our company alone, we probably paid close to $200,000 last year just in taxes to the state. I mean, think about how many jobs we could have offered Montana citizens for that $200,000. So
that's true.
You know, or how much business growth. So, I mean,
which still gets taxed eventually.
that's exactly right.
I mean, let's be real.
We're getting taxed there. We're getting taxed with our employees. We're getting taxed that our
Man, that double taxing.
I would be curious.
Well, and then the tax Alan was talking about with the federal government, where they hit it with our gross, profits, unlike anybody else out there. But the thing about it is right now the Montana legislature is actually trying to really stifle any kind of business growth. There's a bill out there to completely lock the market down as it is right now. Snapshot in time, no more growth, no more business development, and we're sort of stuck with what we have. And then there's other groups out there, like some of the Montana environmental groups. They're actually pushing the legislature right now to not take the taxes and divert them to any other allocation, because right now they pay for a lot of the state parks, things like that. And so these conservation groups are really pushing to keep those taxes high. So we have sort of a struggle here between environmentalists and cannabis users. So
interesting. Yeah, it's I'm just thinking to myself about even in the local states, politics are important, guys. Go out and vote. Call your senators, talk to them about what you care about, because that stuff matters.
Yeah. And they're in legislative session right now. And so, they're meeting up there in Helena. They're going through a lot of the stuff. I think, honestly, the thought to me is lower the tax rate. That's going to stimulate more sales, which is actually going to generate more tax revenue, going to generate more jobs. And then you can save the environment and, stimulate the economy at the same time. It seems like a win-win for everybody.
Well, I mean, no matter what, it's hard to not look at the fact that we have one of the highest tax rates in the entire country. So
That's a damn fact.
by a significant margin as well.
So the only other thing that we got on top of that is Meta still hates weed. So Zuckerberg has stated that he's going to be lifting some of the some of the restrictions on what you can talk about on Meta and what is the other one? Instagram and Threads. But cannabis is not one of those issues. And in fact, there's now a new thing. If you even try to search for cannabis or cannabis related company on Facebook, you're going to get a disclaimer that tells you how to report cannabis companies or people trying to sell cannabis on Facebook. So that's been a super clampdown on that. Zuckerberg has gone overboard, and I think honestly it's going to be interesting how that plays out.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to see what other sort of social media platform takes that space, because anytime, I think that if he pushes it out, then people are just going to find another way to do exactly that anyway. It doesn't really effectively do anything.
Yeah, there's like LeafWire and a couple out there that are almost dedicated to cannabis. So, I mean, Alan, with your cannabis financial advising, do you find trouble advertising to customers on Facebook, or find those restrictions hampering your business at all, or it doesn't play a very big impact into what you're doing?
Are you asking me?
Yep.
So I had a bank account with Capital One, not that I'm going to name names. And I have a pretty large Facebook site for both 420 Investor and for New Cannabis Ventures. And they are somewhat restricted. I can't advertise them, but it's so funny, because if you step back, this whole thing, what Zuckerberg's doing, why is it against the law to talk about something? I understand if he wants to stop people from selling drugs from Montana to Florida, whatever would be the case. I can understand how he wouldn't want to be part of that, but what is the problem with talking about stocks, talking about cultivation techniques, state legal operators? I don't understand.
I was just going to say probably the exact same thing that Nate was. We don't understand it either. It doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, it's a freedom of speech issue. I really don't understand why I'm not allowed to say my opinion about the cannabis or cannabis industry, or, post my job that I report my taxes on, just like everybody else. I can't talk about it on Facebook. It's pretty bizarre. It feels a little
pay your taxes and shut up.
Right? Yeah.
Give it your money and be quiet. So, I would just add to what Daniel was saying there. It's, not only a freedom of speech issue, but I think there's a freedom of association and freedom of expression that goes right along with that. But we have a plurality of states now that have legalized cannabis. I think up to 40 with medical, 25 with some form of recreational cannabis. So that's half the states with some sort of full legalization, and then 40 states with some form of cannabis on their laws. So, I think Zuckerberg and everybody else needs to just get with what the states have already implemented, and there shouldn't be any reason that we couldn't talk about a state legal product, just like any other product.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting how federal illegality can mess things up. And
Absolutely, yes.
none of us think it should be illegal, right? But it is. And it messes up banking and all sorts of issues.
Yeah, we have Republican Senator Steve Daines from Montana is actually the co-sponsor of the Safer Banking Act. I know that's still moving its way through Congress right now. Hopefully they'll get that across the threshold this time around. I know there is some support from the incoming administration that they would sign whatever law Congress put in front of them with respect to cannabis. So we'll see how it plays out for sure. I got some news on that a little bit more here as well. But, I think it's going to be very interesting how the next 6 to 8 months play out in Washington, D.C., and if there's going to be a really good faith effort to actually get cannabis banking accomplished, because I know there's a lot of people who want to get into that cannabis money.
Yeah. So people ask me about it. And I always say, well, number one, never count on government to fix things.
In fact.
Say that they don't mess things up. Don't count on them to fix things. But when it comes to safer banking, a lot of people get really excited, the stock people. And the reality is, if you look at large publicly traded companies, name one that doesn't have banking. They all have banking. It's smaller operators that have problems with getting banking.
Yeah,
That's all those fees.
Definitely. And Hannah has a pretty good banking background, being a branch manager before. The thing about it that I see when it comes to the smaller businesses, a good majority of the American economy is actually comprised of small businesses. And when they don't have access to capital, they don't have access to the availability of funds, just like big businesses, you create a pretty big imbalance. And I think you as a financial advisor could speak a little bit more to that and how that really impacts economies on a large level.
Yeah. So I think that there's a big war going on right now. And I'm not even sure who's on which side, but you have a lot of people out there that think these big, evil cannabis companies are trying to take over and keep the little guy out. And I'm not so sure that's true, but it may be true. I've never heard anybody admit to that. But, in Florida, which failed to pass adult use, it only got 58%, it needs 60%. There was some back and forth about how evil one company was and that they were trying to take it over. Really? I mean, I don't think that's correct, but I think that unfortunately you have, we're talking about New York. New York had a very forward-looking social equity portion to their industry. And they really wanted to help the little guy or gal who happened to maybe not be white and very different maybe. And they've done, I think, a good job of sticking with that. Maybe sometimes too good. And I think that these people with social equity challenges, they have banking challenges too. So I think that if they really want to help the minorities, the social equity people, a lot of these people spent time in jail in the past for breaking the law with cannabis. They need to make banking better. It's not going to help the big companies, but it will help the little people out there, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's actually a perspective on the banking bill that I've never heard before. But of course, it does make sense. I don't want to name any big names, but we all know the top 5 cannabis companies, you know what I mean? And of course they have banking. Of course they do. So like you said, so it really is the small guys that are being held down by all that.
Well, busting through the news real quick so that we can get it done and get on.
Yeah, hey, I
more
mean, lots
interesting
of
topics,
stuff to talk about.
Here's something that'll get you moving real quick. A new study has said the old adage of lazy stoner is out the window. Science has disproven that. So a federally funded study published in Addictive Behaviors tracked 98 adults nationwide and found that people were more physically active when they used cannabis. So on the days that they used cannabis, they actually got into doing things more running, aerobics, heavy yard work, stuff like that. So apparently people weren't just locked on the couch. Weren't just playing video games. They were actually getting out there and getting something done. And I think knowing a little bit of difference between sativas, indicas, and some of them hybrids out there probably has helped some of that out as well. But the study also showed a little bit higher alcohol and cigarette use on those days. So I guess balance is key. So everybody's doing a little more activity, but they feel like they could probably throw in a little cigarette and alcohol on
A
top.
little extra fun time.
Interesting.
I'm already splurging.
That's an interesting statistic.
I feel like I can socially be acceptable. I'm going to go have a drink now.
Absolutely right. And I think that'd be interesting for Montana's outdoor maybe some targeting for people on the outdoor communities and stuff like that, cannabis and hiking communities, cannabis and some other communities. So maybe some open market segments for our rugged outdoors. So speaking of Montana and federal reform, slow burn ahead. So realistically, you got the Republicans that are controlling all 3 chambers of the government at this point. Some people don't have a lot of faith that they're going to move forward with any kind of cannabis reform or any kind of cannabis bills, that they'd probably fight it pretty heavy. There's been some talk about Pamela Bondi, the new attorney general choice, maybe being against it. But overall, it seems like there is some coalitions that are coming together that are bipartisan, that are really starting to push some of these bills. The Safer Banking Act being one that we just talked about. That would give cannabis businesses access to banking services. And, I think that's, like we talked about, pretty critical for smaller cannabis businesses. Definitely ours and several others. We've had difficulties even finding banks that would deal with people in Montana for cannabis. And it's starting to relax a little bit more, but still seeing those problems out there for businesses. The State Reform Act descheduling cannabis federally while freeing nonviolent offenders and protecting states' laws. So this one sort of allows the state laws to sort of take place, and the federal government is going to take a step back. The one that goes a little bit farther than that is States 2.0 Act, and it basically exempts state legal cannabis from any kind of federal law or overreach, which I think that one is a pretty good one, and we'll pay attention to that and let everybody know as it comes along. But that's sort of where we're at with that. And then that's about it for the news today, for sure.
Dang.
Awesome. Should we do his video?
Awesome stuff.
Oh, yeah. We got so dang wrapped up in talking there for the first, honestly, full half hour. We forgot to run your video. We did go ahead and make you a little custom song here. So thank you guys all for hanging out with us and Alan. We're not going anywhere, but we are going to go ahead and run this little video. So we'll see you all in a couple minutes.
Okay.
In the world of finance, a man takes his stand. Alan with a keen, steady hand. CFA by title, he's a legend, you'll see. With a mind for the markets and a love for the green. He saw the potential, but not without care. In the cannabis sector, he's always aware. Balancing risks, he's ahead of the game. New cannabis ventures, now everyone knows his name. With a vision so clear, guiding investors through the smoke and the fear. From stocks to risks, he's the voice in the crowd. Alan, he's making it loud. to the cannabis bloom. He saw the future when it was just starting to loom. Analyzing stocks with precision and flair, he taught us to see what others wouldn't dare. Through the highs and the lows, he stands his ground, assessing the risks where value is found. The cannabis wave he rode from the start, a cautious optimist, it's his work of heart. Alan, with a vision so clear, guiding investors through the smoke and the fear. From stocks to risk, he's the voice in the crowd. Alan, he's making it loud. He's been through the peaks and he's seen the decline, but his wisdom and insight continue to shine. In the face of change, he stands strong and tall. Alan, the guide through it all.
And we're back.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. Alan, what did you think of the little video and song? That's your first live reaction here.
Yeah, well, I read the script and it was good, but the video was even better than the script.
That's awesome. Well, we're super happy that you liked it. Yeah, absolutely. We all work really hard on the team to make those videos for you guys. So we're glad that you liked it. So anyway, we just wanted to thank you. Again, we're not going anywhere, but we really wanted to thank you, Alan, for taking the time today to talk to us about all this cannabis news, the financial aspects of, what we're looking at, even, potential ETFs, things that people could look into and do your own research on, obviously, like very interesting stuff. A lot of things that I guarantee you no one had any idea existed before this.
Well, and the other thing about it is that how do people get a hold of you real quick? I mean, if somebody wants to follow you or get a hold of your services, where can they find that?
So there's I should have one quick answer, and I'll give you the easiest answer. It's not my primary way of connecting, but I do have some things to answer your question further at alanbrochstein.com. I just started this a year ago. And I don't write about cannabis that much, but all you have to do is click on cannabis stocks, and I talk about all the different ways to connect with me. And just because I have listeners now, I don't need everybody to pay me. I know the way it works out there. I don't like a person who will look for everything and doesn't want to pay anything. You can't do that with me. But if you want a little bit, it's free, and I have plenty of stuff for you. If you want more, then I have more, but you have to pay.
Sure.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
I have a lot of
literally. Hopefully.
Dollars and cents.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, fantastic. I think that is, I know we normally don't like to run videos back to back, but we are going to jump into stoner trivia. Pew, 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 pew. Let's run it.
Smoking like a rasta, feeling so high. We talk about cannabis and getting fly. Are you smarter than a stoner? Let's find out. Listen up,
B, the
my
plant's
friends.
flavor
I
and
got
aroma
something to
compounds.
shout.
C,
Cannabis
the plant's
knowledge,
fibers.
let it flow through your mind. Getting blazed, smoking loud, we all unwind. Trivia questions, can you keep up the pace? Let's see if you're sharper in this smoky haze.
Alrighty, welcome back, folks. We are going to do some stoner trivia. I tell you what, I was arguing with Daniel and I didn't pull it up.
We're killing Nate over here. Had to pull it
Just a couple
together, right?
seconds.
Right.
When we put the camera back up. It's fun.
We always love our blooper reels.
Oh, yes.
The behind the scenes is really just chaos, guys.
It's just utter chaos.
I'm almost there, I promise. I'm so sorry. Okay, we can scroll over. Starting with number one.
Number one.
Which specific part of a cannabis trichome is responsible for the biosynthesis of cannabinoids? A, basal cells at the trichome base. B, the cuticle layer surrounding the trichome. C, the stalk of the trichome, or D, the secretory cells in the glandular head?
Holy smokes!
Yeah, I know, right?
That was big words this week.
I picked at the first question, make sure we had the right week when I was loading this up, and I was
So
like,
what do we do to piss you
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I'm going with D.
I guess I'm gonna have to go with that too. That makes the most sense to me, but I have no idea. It's an honest guess.
yeah, totally guessing. But yep,
Calvin?
Calvin, what you got?
Any guesses? in the
Any
chat today?
guesses, Calvin? I'm kidding. I'm going with B, regardless of what Calvin says. I hope it's B. Calvin, please say it's B.
Phone a friend for Calvin.
Yeah.
I know, right? He might be fucked up for the night.
Right.
Might be.
So, anybody else out there in the chat got a guess?
Nobody's really been responding. So.
It doesn't matter if you have wrong answers. No one judges. It's
We
okay.
accept all answers.
We're
We,
wrong all
we
the
accept every answer.
It's all good.
time. All right. Any guesses? Any guesses?
Nothing from the live audience today, but
No.
that's okay.
Nope,
Right.
nope. We got it coming in.
Boom, boom, boom. There they are.
Calvin with a C.
This was a hard
Caleb,
question.
D.
They didn't know.
Ellen, do you have anything?
They had to Google real quick.
T.
You're going with D?
Alan's going with D.
Yeah.
They
I'm
had
better
to
at financial questions, but these are important too.
Yes.
Well, we're guessing just like anybody else, I think, right now.
Yeah,
so
this is a tough
don't
one.
feel bad.
The correct answer is D.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
Look at us. We're
We
good
did it.
guessers.
Jeez, Calvin,
Let's
you
see.
weren't dedicating every second to the stream
I can't
while we're
believe
live. No, I'm just kidding. We actually appreciate every single one of you guys. I don't mean to interrupt, but please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all.
Number 2. Which genetic trait distinguishes sativa from indica cannabis plants? And how does it influence growth characteristics? A. Indicas have shorter flowering times due to faster metabolism. B. Sativas produce higher levels of CBD and thrive in low light environments. C. Indicas develop longer internodal spacing for better airflow. Or D. Sativas have thicker leaves allowing for more efficient water retention.
I'm going with A.
Boy, these are.
Yeah. A.
I have
think.
to use my process of elimination on this one.
Yeah.
Bum, bum,
I can't do like any other popular music because I'll probably get banned. So no DMCA's. All right, no DMCA's.
What are some guesses?
It's got A.
I'm thinking A myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With A.
I was. Yeah. A's my guess.
All right. Alan, you got a guess?
It's either A or D. Let's see, I have to pick one. I'm going to go with A also.
Awesome. We got Calvin in with an A.
All right. C and A's all around, and that is the correct answer.
I
Wow.
was half expecting to knock you like. No.
Wrong.
It's actually
Wrong.
C.
That
All
was a
right.
very technical move right there.
Yes. Number 3. What does a deficiency of phosphorus have on a cannabis
Wow.
plants? What effect does it? Oh my goodness.
Getting actually fucking blasted
Weed
by
and
your
birds,
teammate, by the way.
Called out right now.
Yeah, for real.
Hard. Dang, Tanaki.
I
That's
don't know
all
why
right.
this
She's trying to
sentence feels
teach us.
So difficult right now. All right, let me try that again. What effect does a deficiency of phosphorus have on a cannabis plant's during the flowering stage? Is it me, or does the sentence not quite make
It
sense?
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Doesn't flow well.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Did you do this while you were stoned, Tanaki?
Yes.
It's all good. It makes enough sense. Basically, what does a phosphorus deficiency do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A. Delayed flowering and poor bud development. B. Chlorosis and yellowing of older leaves. C. Increased susceptibility to pests. Or D. Reduced terpene production.
Okay, let's
Well,
say
I think it could be
B.
multiple
E.
answers.
Mhm. That's
I'm
kind of
going
what
A
I
or
was
B,
thinking.
but I'm going to go with B.
But which is the strongest one?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to follow
E.
along with the.
See, but I'm pretty sure that you want to add a bunch of phosphorus during flower period for bud development. So this might be, but obviously lack of phosphorus causes yellowing and chlorosis. So I don't know, man, it's a tricky one.
Tanaki's really poking the sadness on this one.
I got to go with the most obvious answer.
I'm gonna go A just to be different.
E.
What do
I
we got,
still
Calvin?
stand with my answer.
Calvin also did guess A.
Okay.
I think
How about
Calvin
Alan?
gets to be.
You got a guess for us out there?
I'm going to go with B.
Awesome.
What do you think?
Got a couple A's, couple B's.
I have the correct answer as A.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that. I think if you don't give it phosphorus, which is, I mean, 9 times out of 10 probably going to be your difference between your veg and your bloom food. It's going to be your phosphorus difference. Then you're going to run into flowering and poor bud development, which I suppose is a little bit worse than yellow leaves on the bottom.
Yeah.
As long as everything else is going smooth, yellow leaves isn't necessarily an end all, kill all.
And then dies.
And then dies.
It does die. Guys, just so you know, if you just keep not giving it phosphorus, it will just die. Don't ask how I know.
It's been a sad week, guys. It was a small plant anyway, so
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Number
All right.
4, final question. How does UVB light exposure impact trichome production on cannabis plants? A. It reduces trichome density to minimize UV absorption. B. It stimulates trichome production as a protective response. C. It has no effect on trichomes but increases THC levels. Or D. It primarily affects root development rather than trichomes.
Dun, 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 dun.
I can't pick my answer. I've got a cheater over here.
All right. Well, that one's a fun one.
I think I've got an answer. Without cheating.
Without cheating.
I had it before you
All right.
grabbed your sticky.
You ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
I know. It's not how
Alright,
I got
what are your
A's in
answers?
school.
I'm
B,
going
B.
with B.
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 I'm going with the popular vote.
Anything in the chat?
That way
B
it won't
from
be
Calvin.
touched.
B from Calvin. Beep, 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 beep.
Me like, where's Kayla? She had an LP. Kayla
Boom.
gave from B as well.
There we go.
Kayla got a B. Woo woo.
Alan? I mean,
He's going with B as well.
B is the correct answer.
Man. We are some smart stoners this week again.
And I just want to say, I was so stoned when I was writing out the questions that I made the answers spell dab, D-A-B.
thank you.
Way to go.
Fun fact of the day. Oh my gosh.
That is
And
fantastic.
all of us are so stoned that none of us caught that.
Based on my answers, it was Babs. So, you know.
Bam. That is a good.
Dang.
All right.
So
Yeah.
I think we only got strain of the week left, huh?
Yeah.
Holy moly, strain of the week, meat breath. Meat
breath.
breath is what won out this week, guys.
Oh, you guys voted, so here it is.
We've got a
Meat Breath.
song. Just meat breath reminded me of Meatloaf, the band.
Nice.
So here we go.
I will do anything for drugs.
Yes. Meat.
Frosty buds in the amber light. Meat breath takes you to new heights. Sticky resin, a smoky hue. Hints of diesel cutting through.
Welcome
All right.
back, guys. We've got Meat Breath. I hope you guys liked that song and video. So Meat Breath is a very indica dominant strain.
Wow.
But
Very indica dominant. Very. That's the first time that it's ever said very.
it is. So
Wow.
would that just be an indica dominance? Or just an indica?
Just
I
indica.
guess. It doesn't even have a percentage of what kind of indica it is.
Yeah.
So it is a child of Meatloaf and Mendo Breath. Pretty standard indica that you'd see today, your bright purples and greens. Dominant terpenes in there. Limonene, shocker. Caryophyllene, shocker. Pinene, though, an actual shocker.
So I wonder where the meat comes in. I mean, which one gives it that meat flavor?
The meatloaf.
It's got to be
Meatloaf.
caryophyllene.
Mm.
Oh, he's thinking terps. I bet.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's the caryophyllene because that's the same terp that I found dominant in a lot of like the Chinese food strains and stuff like that savory MSG flavor. I think it's similar enough to pepper where your brain can, alongside the other ones, of course.
Well, what's in your burgers, your Donnie burgers and stuff like that?
Caryophyllene.
I
I'm
guess.
telling you. Wasn't me this time.
What me?
Not this
It's not
time.
whistling, so
What
it's
are they not
definitely not me. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, we're gonna get banned again.
Oh, God, stop.
Too good at whistling. Anyway.
Gonna make you feel sleepy, relaxed, and tingly.
Mm.
Tastes of pepper, chestnut, and woody.
Call me and let me know you're okay when you get everything done.
But yeah, that's your meat breath for you. I don't know.
Cool.
I'd love to try it.
Sounds like one of those classic heavy indicas. You know, do you guys have any experience with any of the breath strains? I know that there's like blueberry breath, peanut butter breath, lamb's breath, lots of breath strains. Although I'm not sure if lamb's breath is related to Mendo breath. I'm curious. Does anyone in the chat know? But what kind of experience do you guys have with the breath strains?
You know, I've had Detroit breath before,
Mm.
but it's been so long I can't really say much about it. I was like a indica leaning hybrid.
Mm.
That's about all I remember, though.
Was that the Detroit breath we had at the shop?
I think so.
Like a
Like
millennia ago?
forever ago.
Millennia Falcon. Anyway.
What?
Like
Don't
last
get
winter.
us banned.
No
Yeah.
Star Wars references.
From
Anyway.
Mac, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
But that was I think that was the last experience with any of the breath family that I've had.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the lamb's breath, and then also the peanut butter breath.
Mm.
Definitely some great strains. I think that the overall flavor profile of the lamb's breath was something that was nice and smooth. The
Mhm.
peanut butter breath, they seemed a little bit harsher to me.
Mhm.
So
Okay, Calvin does say that the lamb's breath is not related, just
Uh-huh.
by name. That makes sense.
just name association.
Yeah. So the ones that are related to Mendo breath are probably those little bit. How would you describe it? Harsher? Not necessarily harsher, but just
Probably just that peppery from the caryophyllene making
Yeah.
it just feel a little bit harsher, but it's but just a little bit of a spice to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Caryophyllene with the pepper coming in there,
Mhm.
just giving that tickle on the back of the throat.
Mhm. Classic.
Yes, I find that's quite a common trait for a lot of those high in caryophyllene. Is they're quote unquote harsh, but it's just because they just tickle the back of your throat just a little bit.
Just left us, so it's good to get them.
Oh,
Cool.
Just back to us. So,
Awesome.
Well-
Doo-doo. Anyway, total derail of the
Looks like
train.
Alan left for the evening. It was great having him on this evening, guys. Thanks for everybody who's stuck around for this episode. I think we got a little bit more to go into. Is it still right? Or
Yeah,
I think strain of the week was really about it. We got news taken care of.
got that stoner trivia taken care of. I mean,
Yes.
Would
Those
Yeah.
dab questions.
Yeah,
no one even
absolutely.
dropped a
Yeah.
dab. Daniel didn't even drop a dab.
Nope, I know. I didn't drop the fattest dab of my life. If you wanted to see that, you'd have to subscribe to our Peloton.
Paleoton?
Paleoton.
Wow.
Well, I guess that doesn't actually leave really anything to go over for
Yeah.
tonight.
No,
Not
thank
too
you
much
guys all.
more, Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
appreciate everybody tuning in. And next week, we will be back with Erica Ciate from Expo Realty, selling some of that cannabis real estate out there and doing some more wonderful stoner trivia.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Thank you guys once again for stopping by and have a wonderful evening.
Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Night, everybody.